Dark-haired, sexy beauty who was the star of Three's Company. Joyce DeWitt, thanks for doing this. I know you're real busy.
Three's Company was one of the most groundbreaking sitcoms of the 1970s and 80s, a show that pushed boundaries and challenged social norms while making audiences laugh. At the center of it all were three young roommates.
See the part that you play in your own drama of your life. Like, what part did I play in this? And I see it.
John Ritter's lovable Jack Tripper, Suzanne Somers' bubbly Chrissy Snow, and Joyce DeWitt's sensible Janet Wood. They were the perfect trio, their chemistry electric and their comedic timing flawless. But behind the scenes, the laughter masked a world of pain. The show would end in the most devastating and heartbreaking way imaginable, leaving one of its stars shattered. And now, we finally know why Joyce DeWitt was so heartbroken, and why she vanished from Hollywood for decades. The making of Three's Company. In the mid-1970s, American television was dominated by shows that reflected the changing social landscape of the country. The personal rights revolution had arrived, and audiences were increasingly interested in stories about single adults navigating relationships and independence. It was in this cultural moment that a British sitcom about a man living with two women caught the attention of American producers. That show was called Man About the House, and it would become the blueprint for one of the most beloved sitcoms in television history. The adaptation rights were secured by American producers Don Nichol, Michael Ross, and Bernie West, who saw the potential in bringing the concept to an American audience. But translating a British hit to American television was never a simple matter. The producers knew they had to find the right chemistry, the right cast, and the right tone to make the show work. What followed was a journey of trial and error that nearly derailed the project before it even began. The production went through 3 distinct pilot recordings before finding the correct creative chemistry. The first pilot, filmed in early 1976, was written by Larry Gelbart and bore little resemblance to the show that would eventually become a ratings juggernaut. John Ritter was present, but his character was not yet Jack Tripper. Instead, he played David Bell, an aspiring filmmaker rather than a chef. The 2 female roommates, played by Valerie Curtin and Suzanne Somers, were also very different from the characters audiences would come to love. The pilot was deemed unsuitable for broadcast. The second pilot, filmed in January 1977, brought Joyce DeWitt into the fold as Janet Wood. She would remain the one constant among the female leads, but the role of the blonde roommate was still in flux. Susan Lanier was cast as Chrissy Snow, and she appeared alongside DeWitt and Ritter in the second unaired pilot. The episode was similar in structure to the second episode of the first season, with Chrissy's mother coming to visit. The producers were still not satisfied. With just days to go before production was scheduled to begin, ABC President Fred Silverman personally took charge of the casting process. Desperate to find the right actress for the role, he gathered all the audition tapes they had received and began fast-forwarding through them. When he spotted Suzanne Somers, he stopped the tape immediately. He recognized her from an appearance on The Tonight Show and was impressed by what he saw. What was remarkable about this discovery was that Somers had been passed over in the initial auditions, and no one could give Silverman a clear explanation as to why. She was brought in that very day, put on the set the next morning, and the chemistry finally clicked. The third and final pilot went into production and premiered on March 15, 1977, as a 6-episode mid-season trial on ABC. The show was an immediate success. The series pulled a massive 28.3 rating during its short spring run, prompting an immediate full-season order from ABC. By Season 3 and Season 4, Three's Company achieved a top 3 permanent position in the national Nielsen ratings, peaking at #1 for individual broadcast weeks. From 1979 to 1980, the show shot past both of its lead-ins to become the highest-rated television comedy in America. The show garnered major industry achievements as well, culminating in John Ritter winning an Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series in 1984 and a Golden Globe in 1983. The iconic opening tracking shot on the Santa Monica Pier, paired with the theme "Come and Knock on Our Door," became one of the most recognizable television sequences of the era. The song, composed by Joe Raposo and sung by Ray Charles and Julia Rinker, perfectly captured the show's cheerful, light-hearted spirit. On the surface, Three's Company was a comedy about a man living platonically with two women. But beneath the laughter and the farcical misunderstandings lay a show that was pushing boundaries. At a time when cohabitation between unrelated men and women was still considered taboo by many, the show addressed the implications and frustrations of its central premise with a light touch. It was the first sitcom to tackle the subject, and its willingness to engage with the changing social landscape was a key factor in its success. But behind the scenes, the creative chemistry that had made the show such a success was already beginning to fray. The struggles behind the scenes. For all the laughter it generated on screen, the production of Three's Company was a battlefield behind the cameras. The show that seemed so effortlessly entertaining was actually the product of constant conflict, creative exhaustion, and personal struggles that would eventually tear the cast apart. From the very beginning, the show faced intense backlash from conservative watchdog groups and religious organizations. They fiercely protested the premise, labeling it a promotion of premarital intimacy, cohabitation, and moral degeneracy. The controversy only added to the pressure on the producers, who were already navigating the tricky waters of network censorship and audience expectations. The writing process itself was a grind. The writers were contractually forced to construct intricate farcical misunderstandings every single week, a formula that quickly led to extreme creative exhaustion. The show's success depended on its ability to create elaborate comic situations, but the repetition of the formula took its toll. Plot mechanics became predictable, and the writers struggled to find fresh ways to generate the same laughs, week after week. The female cast members faced unique pressures. There was strict oversight regarding wardrobe choices, with network censors explicitly measuring skirt lengths and enforcing tight clothing to maximize physical appeal. The objectification was systematic, and it created a stressful environment for actresses like Joyce DeWitt and Suzanne Somers, who were constantly being judged on their appearance as much as their performances. The spin-off forced removal of Norman Fell and Audra Lindley, who played the Ropers, was a particularly bitter chapter. Executive producers pressured them to leave the main series in 1979 for their own spin-off by promising they could return to the flagship show if it failed within a year. When The Ropers was canceled due to low ratings, producers broke their word and blocked them from rejoining the main cast, replacing them permanently with Don Knotts as Ralph Furley. The betrayal left a sour taste that lingered for years. The revolving door of supporting characters created additional instability. Actress Anne Wedgeworth was hired in Season 4 as Lana Shields to add a new romantic dynamic, but her character vanished after only 9 episodes because the writers completely failed to integrate her into the main plots. Priscilla Barnes, hired in Season 6 as Terry Alden, publicly stated that her time on the show was plagued by intense backstage tension and an unsupportive, highly rigid production atmosphere. She later reflected that she was caught in the middle of a feud that had nothing to do with her. John Ritter, the show's comedic engine, struggled with the intense physical demands of executing hyper-precise slapstick stunts every week, while hiding chronic physical fatigue. The physical comedy that made him a star was also wearing him down. His dedication to his craft was admirable, but it came at a cost. Suzanne Somers was also dealing with personal demons. She was carrying the psychological fallout of growing up with a severely alcoholic father, which colored her early defensive business decisions. Her traumatic upbringing left her with trust issues and a fierce determination to protect herself, traits that would eventually lead to her spectacular falling out with the producers. Long after the show ended, Joyce DeWitt faced her own legal troubles. In 2009, she was arrested in El Segundo, California, for driving under the influence, resulting in a probation plea deal. The incident was a reminder that the struggles that had plagued the production continued to haunt the cast even decades later. The behind-the-scenes struggles of Three's Company were a testament to the pressures of network television. The show that had brought so much joy to audiences was the product of constant conflict, creative compromise, and personal battles that would eventually tear the cast apart. The seeds of the Suzanne Somers feud had been planted early, and they would grow into a bitter harvest. The Suzanne Somers pay feud and fallout. The laughter that filled the soundstage of Three's Company was about to be silenced by a conflict that would tear the show apart. In 1980, as production prepared for Season 5, Suzanne Somers made a demand that would set off a chain reaction of bitterness, betrayal, and a feud that would last for decades. The actress, who had become a household name as the bubbly, ditzy Chrissy Snow, was about to become the center of one of the most infamous contract disputes in television history. Somers requested a staggering 500% salary increase from $30,000 per episode to $150,000 per episode, plus a 10% cut of the show's syndication profits. The demand was bold, and her team justified it by pointing to the massive success of the show and Somers' growing profile as a symbol of attraction and cultural phenomenon. She was on magazine covers, she was a household name, and she believed she deserved to be compensated accordingly. Her team also argued that she deserved to be on equal financial footing with John Ritter, who was already making significantly more money due to his top-billed status. The logic was simple. The show was a hit because of the chemistry among all three leads, and Somers felt she was contributing as much to that success as Ritter was. She was the show's breakout star, the blonde bombshell who had captured the public's imagination, and she wanted to be paid like one. But the request immediately ran into a contractual obstacle. Joyce DeWitt held a clause in her contract, a provision that guaranteed her financial parity with any other female lead. If the producers agreed to pay Somers $150,000 per episode, they would be contractually obligated to pay DeWitt the same amount. The financial implications were enormous, and the producers were not willing to open that door. When the producers refused her demands, Somers took drastic action. She missed the tapings of the first 2 episodes of Season 5, officially claiming a severe rib injury. But the producers suspected the injury was a convenient excuse. They were aware of a recent magazine interview in which Somers had discussed her desire for a raise, and they believed she was using the injury as leverage. The tension on set was palpable, and the cast and crew were caught in the middle. The reaction from her co-stars was swift and devastating. Ritter and DeWitt felt blindsided by the sudden strike, viewing it as a direct threat to the jobs of the crew and the stability of the ensemble. They had worked together for years, and they had built a family on that set. Somers' actions felt like a betrayal, a selfish move that threatened to unravel everything they had built. The two of them signed a joint pact refusing to perform on camera or share the stage with Somers if she walked back onto the main set. The situation escalated to the point where producers had to find a solution that allowed the show to continue while fulfilling Somers' remaining contractual obligations. They banned her from the main stage, forcing her to tape her mandatory 60-second scenes on an isolated, completely closed studio set. Her character was written as staying away at her mother's house, and Somers spoke her lines directly into a prop telephone, alone on a separate soundstage. She was still paid for her appearances, but she never interacted with her castmates again. The public was not told the full story. The official line was that Somers was being written out due to creative differences. Her character was phased out over the course of the season, and the producers quickly cast Jenna Lee Harrison as Chrissy's clumsy cousin, Cindy Snow, to maintain the three-roommate dynamic. Harrison's character was not a permanent solution, however. She lasted only one season before being replaced by Priscilla Barnes as Terry Alden. The bitterness of the feud did not fade with time. Somers would later recall the experience of being reduced to taping her lines into a phone, describing the emptiness of performing without her colleagues. In a 2016 interview, she reflected on the loneliness of the experience, the sadness of being separated from the cast and crew who had become her family, and the stress of fighting for her career while being ostracized. The dream of the show had become a nightmare. The public fallout was immense. Viewers had loved Chrissy Snow, and her sudden departure left a void that could not be filled. The show continued for 3 more seasons, but the chemistry was never quite the same. Ratings declined, and the show was eventually canceled in 1984. The personal toll on Somers was staggering. Her career suffered, and she was effectively blacklisted from Hollywood for years as an unrepentant, strident woman who had dared to ask for what she believed she was worth. She faced a patriarchy that wanted to put her in her place. She spent years struggling to find work, and her public image was tainted by the feud. The silence between Somers and her former co-stars was absolute. The bitter backstage warfare caused DeWitt and Somers to cut off all communication, refusing to say a single word to each other for exactly 3 decades. The feud became one of the most famous in Hollywood history, a cautionary tale about the dangers of money, ego, and the brutal realities of the entertainment industry. Ritter, who had been caught in the middle, tried to maintain a neutral position. He later expressed that he found the situation tragic, that he loved and respected both women, and that he hoped they could all be friends again one day. But the wounds were too deep. Ritter passed away in 2003, leaving the feud unresolved. It would take 30 years for the silence to finally be broken. And when it happened, the forgiveness was as unexpected as the feud had been bitter. The demise of the show. During Season 8, ABC executives and executive producer Ted Bergman secretly developed a spin-off show titled Three's a Crowd. The series was centered entirely around John Ritter's character, Jack Tripper, moving in with a new girlfriend. The plan was to transition Ritter out of Three's company and into his own show, leaving DeWitt and Priscilla Barnes behind without any warning. The secrecy was absolute. DeWitt later reflected that she knew what it felt like to be a pawn in a game, discarded and ignored. Network executives kept her and Barnes completely in the dark about the spin-off, forcing them to work under the false impression that Three's company was continuing for a 9th season. The revelation came in the most devastating way possible. DeWitt only discovered the show was canceled when she accidentally found a casting breakdown sheet for Three's a Crowd, left sitting on a studio table during production of the final episodes. The discovery was a shock, a moment of profound betrayal. She had given her all to the show for 8 years, and she was being discarded without even the courtesy of a conversation. Her face turned red, and she began crying. She later described the feeling of having devoted herself to a creative endeavor, and being treated as if her contribution meant nothing. The series officially ended its 172-episode run on September 18, 1984, with a rushed one-hour series finale that transitioned Jack out of the apartment. DeWitt walked off the set in disgust, her anger and hurt palpable. The show that had made her a star had ended on a note of betrayal, and she was determined to leave it behind forever. Traumatized by the network deception, DeWitt completely vanished from Hollywood. She appeared only once in a 1984 episode of Finder of Lost Loves before quitting television, acting entirely for years. The experience had broken something in her, and she needed to escape the world that had hurt her so deeply. She sold her California properties and spent years traveling through Europe and New Mexico, determined to completely distance her identity from Hollywood fame. She journeyed to Greece, Egypt, Turkey, Israel, and Spain, searching for something she could not name. She did not want to be the woman people saw on their television screens. She was seeking a deeper purpose. DeWitt re-entered the acting world by entirely bypassing television, finding solace in live regional theater productions. She started with the play Noises Off in June 1991, discovering that theater allowed her to disappear into other roles, to have the privacy she craved. The stage became her refuge, and she continued to perform in plays in Los Angeles and regional theater, believing that the essence of her craft lay in being present and alive with an audience. She remained busy and vibrant, but she refused to return to the medium that had broken her heart. In August 2003, John Ritter called DeWitt to apologize for the past and pitched a dream sequence reunion on his sitcom 8 Simple Rules. He acknowledged that there might have been times when he could have been more supportive, and he wanted to make amends. The conversation was healing, a moment of reconciliation that promised a new chapter. But tragedy struck before the reunion could happen. Just weeks later, on September 11, 2003, Ritter unexpectedly collapsed on set and died of an aortic dissection. The loss was devastating for DeWitt, a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of forgiveness. The silence between DeWitt and Somers finally ended in 2012, when DeWitt broke her 30-year silence by appearing as a guest on Somers' talk show, Suzanne Somers, Breaking Through. The two women publicly forgave each other, setting aside the bitterness that had defined their relationship for so long. The moment was emotional and healing, a testament to the power of reconciliation. On October 15, 2023, Suzanne Somers died of breast cancer, leaving Joyce DeWitt as the final surviving member of the iconic original trio. The loss was profound, a reminder of the passage of time and the end of an era. DeWitt was left to carry the legacy of the show and the memories of her former castmates, both the joyful and the painful. The demise of Three's Company was a lesson in the cruelty of the entertainment industry. The show that had brought so much joy to audiences had ended in betrayal, heartbreak, and tragedy. Through it all, DeWitt had survived, finding her own path and eventually making peace with her past. However, the real reason she left the show and was heartbroken was not just the cancellation or the spin-off. It was something much deeper and heartbreaking. The true reasons Joyce DeWitt left. Joyce DeWitt's departure from Three's Company was not a single event. It was the culmination of years of mistreatment, disrespect, and a fundamental clash of values that left her disillusioned with the entertainment industry. The woman who had brought Janet Wood to life had been fighting battles behind the scenes from the very beginning, and the toll of those battles would eventually drive her away from television forever. The network's initial attempts to erase her were a sign of what was to come. During Season 1, ABC executives openly told producers that DeWitt lacked star power, aggressively pressuring them to write the character of Janet Wood completely out of the scripts to focus entirely on John Ritter and Suzanne Somers. They saw DeWitt as the weak link, the one who could be sacrificed to make the show more marketable. But DeWitt survived the network's early attempts to fire her because John Ritter threatened to walk off the show himself if she was written out. Ritter recognized her talent and her value to the ensemble, and he refused to let the network destroy her career. The clash between DeWitt and the network was not just about star power, it was about values. DeWitt held a Master of Fine Arts from UCLA and was trained in classical theater. She had studied the craft of acting with the seriousness it deserved. She despised the cheap, tabloid celebrity culture that ABC wanted the cast to engage in. While the network wanted her to play the Hollywood game, to be a celebrity above all else, DeWitt resisted. She later reflected that she had never wanted to be famous as her primary ambition. She wanted to be a good actor, to be part of a community of people who loved the craft. The culture of celebrity was a joke to her. The 1979 Sick at Heart walkout was a turning point. In January 1979, during Season 3, ABC retroactively tried to claw back a contractually promised pay raise for DeWitt. She refused to show up for work on the episode Stanley's Hotline, telling her agent she was absolutely sick and tired of the studio's greed. The decision was not about money alone. It was about principle. She had a contract, and the studio was trying to break it. She forced a direct, emergency meeting with the ABC network president to get her contract honors reinstated before she would return to the studio. She had made her point, but the producers punished her for her defiance. When she returned to the set, they refused to undo the emergency rewrites they had made in her absence. Her lines were handed to guest star Anne Shadeen, forcing DeWitt to sit on the sidelines for the episode. It was a humiliating experience, a clear message that her willingness to stand up for herself would not be tolerated. Her character was marginalized in a show she had helped build. The moral script strikes that followed were a testament to her integrity. DeWitt instituted a personal policy of rejecting scripts that objectified or degraded women for cheap laughs. She refused to be part of a show that demeaned women, even if it meant making her job more difficult. During a final dress rehearsal, she flatly refused to deliver a scripted punchline that disparaged a friend of Chrissy's as a street girl. She stood her ground against executive producers until the line was permanently cut. It was a small victory, but it was a statement of her values. The compounding years of being targeted for replacement, witnessing the corporate isolation of Suzanne Somers, and enduring the final spin-off deception made DeWitt realize that Hollywood executives lacked basic human decency. She had given her all to the show, and she had been treated as a disposable asset. The final decision to walk away was not a choice. It was a necessity. She could not continue to work in an industry that had shown her so little respect. The impact of leaving was profound. DeWitt vanished from Hollywood, sold her California properties, and traveled through Europe, Turkey, Israel, and Greece, searching for a deeper purpose. She was running away, but she was also running toward something. A life that was not defined by the industry that had hurt her. She sought a quiet, private life, far from the glitz and glamour that the tabloids craved. DeWitt's post-show life was marked by resilience and a refusal to be defined by her past. She remained a devoted cat lover and animal advocate, supporting various animal welfare organizations. She continued to act, but on her own terms, in projects that aligned with her values. She described herself as a nomad, traveling and performing, finding joy in the simplicity of life. The true reasons Joyce DeWitt left Three's Company were not just about money or fame. They were about a woman who refused to compromise her integrity, who stood up against an industry that wanted to use her and discard her. She walked away not because she failed, but because she refused to accept the terms of a system that demanded her silence and her complicity. Her legacy is not just Janet Wood, but a life lived with courage and conviction. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.